Hey, well, good evening, folks, and welcome to the Illinois Freedom Caucus live stream and roundtable. I'm joined with the honorable member from the upper chamber, Senator Andrew Chesney, and the even more honorable chairman of the Freedom Caucus, Chris Miller. So good to have you guys here this evening. It's a hot one out there in Illinois. Chris, what's going on?
Well, I've been doing a lot of sweating. You're down here. The people know that Manuel Labor isn't the president of Mexico, and so we continue to work and sweat. That's just part of my DNA, I guess.
That's right. Senator?
Life is good. It's nice to be around people with common sense. And in my district, I'm fortunate to have a overwhelming majority of people that look at the ways we do. So feels good to be home.
That's right. That's right. We had our county fair last week, and that's always a great reminder to spend time out there with regular, everyday working people and agriculturalists. And it just reminds me that I'm thankful to live in God's country. Even though God's country was 114 degrees last week, real feel, it was still good to be in God's country. So we got a great program for you this evening. We're going to talk about something that Illinois residents are familiar with, and that's tax increases and cost increases. I think that we are as familiar with those two items as anybody. So we'll just get right into the program. Property transfer tax, Chicago bailout. Here we have another example of an issue being pushed by Democrats in Springfield that are doing the bidding of the Chicago mayor, trying to bail him out for his transit disaster. A 600% property transfer tax targeting homeowners, home buyers, home sellers. Props to the Illinois Realtor Association for taking the jump on this. But here we go, folks. Another tax. Why is the answer always a tax, guys? What do you think?
Go ahead.
Well, go ahead, Chris.
Well, I was just going to say that it's pretty obvious to me. Number one, these people don't understand economics. They don't understand what draws people in and what drives people away. And another thing is that there has to be consequences to their poor spending habits, and as long as the taxpayers continue to reelect these scoundrels, then they're going to be getting the same thing that they've always gotten. J.B. Pritzker's balanced the budget every year on the back of the taxpayers, raising taxes and fees in order to fill the budget hole that they created by their overspending. And so if there's no consequences to poor behavior, then the poor behavior doesn't change.
Yeah, no, I think Chris is right. We have seen so many times both Republicans and Democrats have gotten together to fix the problem through additional revenue enhancements or tax increases. Democrats love to call it investments. Republicans like to apologize and try to avoid the conversation. The challenge that we have is that Governor Pritzker is running out of things to tax before he's going to start to get to a larger tax base he went to sin taxes, gambling, some corporate taxes, some internet taxes. I know a lot of us pay those, but they're really going to start looking at some much more punitive and regressive taxes. I know many of those were regressive that I just mentioned as well, but they got to sharpen the pencil. The governor or the mayor of Chicago, he has a trans issue. Now he has a transit issue, right? So he's got a lot of T issues, and that's unfortunate. If he would just govern the city of Chicago, Chris and I, of course, would like it to be governed to the right, but even just a middle would be refreshing. But they're so far off the rails on so many of their policies, and now they're asking people in my district, Chris's district, and everybody outside of the Chicago Transit Authority to fund a system that we not only use or don't use, but most of us have never even been on. And so it's really disheartening and frustrating. But I think these are areas where Republicans and maybe some independents can come together and push back against Governor Pritzker and his tax and spend policies.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm just sitting here thinking about this issue, and a property transfer tax. Well, so what is that? Well, it's when you go buy or sell a property and the deed changes over to a new person, and it's essentially a tax of the ownership of a property is transferred. So here again, who are we going after? We're going after private property owners, private businesses, homeowners. We're going after all the wrong people. Meanwhile, do you think these illegal immigrants are paying property transfer taxes in their government funded housing in Chicago? No, absolutely not. But here again, we're going after property owners. And by the way, how do we ever expect to attract people into Illinois when there's barriers all along the way, including a 600% property transfer tax to even move to the state? No, thank you. I'll live across the border. So these people are totally out of touch.
I think that another thing that we need to look at is the economic drivers that are driving them to try to enhance their revenue through taxation, and it's because of irresponsible spending is why they're wanting to try to do this. And I think it was, what was it, last week that there was information that came out about the overtime that they paid for the Chicago public workers, where I think a 67 to $70,000 a year job that they were knocking down someplace plus to over $200,000 in overtime.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing about it, they ought to love President Trump. No tax on overtime.
That's right.
But I mean, that's an example of how abusive, because I know I was talking to some guys that work for IDOT here locally, and they said, they get some overtime, but there isn't anything like that.
Yeah, it's totally absurd. And again, it just goes to show that we're talking about years and years and years of malpractice and government failure, and they want us to pay for it. And we think that's wrong.
Yeah, and let's not forget, and I think people that have been in Illinois for a little while, the tollway system was going to go away once the roads were built. The lottery system and our interest in gambling was going to balance the budgets for our schools. Marijuana was going to balance the budget without any additional tax increases. Our road fund was never going to be swept, and it was never going to be manipulated, even though we disagreed with the increase, and it was going to fund all our local infrastructure. Of course, we know a lot of that money got siphoned and continues to get siphoned off. And now the most punitive tax that we have in the state is our property taxes. And as a parting gift, we're going to whack you with a big old transfer just to move your real estate. And these people are nuts, and they'll never stop. Their addiction to revenue is real every day, and they have no interest in putting their position in putting their position in favor of a taxpayer rather than just to centralize power and government within the Democrat Party, in my view.
Do you think that we're starting to see a pattern there, Senator Chesney?
Yeah, we see a pattern. Yeah, every year, and then Chris and I, we spent a lot of our time just trying to get Republicans just to agree to say no, right?
Right.
It's kind of like the guy on a diet, man or woman on a diet walking down the Hostess aisle at Walmart. They can't hardly help themselves but grab the Twinkie and keep on going. And we got to stop. We got to get our hand out of the cookie jar.
Yeah. Well, it's like our famous President Reagan said. He said the Democrats' vision is, if it moves, tax it. If it keeps moving, regulate it. And if it stops moving, subsidize it. And that's 100% a snapshot of what we see going on in real time.
All the time.
So, Senator, you used the word regressive earlier, and I think another example of the governor, the Democrats, they always like to use this fancy, feel-good buzzword language, and regressive is at the top of that list. Well, folks, I don't know anybody that passes more regressive policies on working families than the Illinois Democrats and J.B. Pritzker. And here's a prime example of that: is your electric bills. I know probably all of you listening across the state have either opened or you're grimacing in preparations of opening your utility bill. And the most important thing, folks, on this is a consequence of bad public policy, of green energy scam, dreams from the Democrats, and you're the ones paying for it. So, Senator, I'll let you open up on this one. What give me your thoughts?
Well, my initial thoughts is I was around when this bill passed in CEJA, the green energy scam of the state, and I saw Republicans join Democrats. So my first observation would be is I hope that the Republicans that are still in office that have taken this vote have recognized that this has failed and will aggressively try to reverse course. And so we highlight that not to complain, but just to give an observation that it isn't that our hands are clean. The Republican Party's hands are clean on all this bad policy as well. That's my first observation. Second observation is when you allow the free markets to work, they've historically proven that they can drive down the costs and they can improve the quality of life for everybody that lives in this country. When we allow government to pick winners and losers, costs skyrocket, and very few companies make a lot of money, and a lot of companies get screwed through this process. And we saw that with natural gas and coal, where we were a net exporter of energy. Now we're a net importer of energy. So we're essentially taking the energy that we were once sending out of the state. We said, we don't want that energy. Now we're taking energy in the state and it's costing us a premium. All while we're also giving massive tax credits to data centers that are requiring a ton of energy, that are also overloading our system, which we're heavily subsidizing. And when I say we're heavily subsidizing, the residents of the state are subsidizing. And so the energy policy is really all over the place. And Governor Pritzker wants to power us off of solar panels and windmills, which cannot be done. And if it could be done, the cost of this energy would just be so unaffordable to the average person. They will leave faster in this state than they already are. And so those would be my initial thoughts. You've seen a governor and a Democrat majority that don't want the private markets and competition to work. They want to pick winners and losers and work off of feel-good punchlines. You know, I have a congressional district that I overlap with the loser Eric Sorensen, who literally on his campaign, his campaign sign had a picture of solar panels and windmills. I think it was windmills. And, this is a climate activist, and they elect these people, and they think he's great. And so I hope they think he's great when they open up that ComEd bill or that Ameren bill, and they see these massive increases, and they maybe go to the congressman and say, hey, congressman, let me talk to you about your green energy policy that's tripled my electric bill over the last 2 years.
No, you're absolutely right, Andrew. And it's incredible to me that the citizens of this state, obviously to a certain degree, are buying the green utopia that the Democrats are selling. And this is 100% a scam. And the reason why that I know it's a scam is if you look at and see what China's doing. You think that they have any wind farms or solar farms in China? They have absolutely zero wind farm or solar farms in China. And what they're doing is they're opening a coal-fired electric generation plant, averaging one a week. And people have forgotten the reason why we have the lifestyle that we have is because of cheap, affordable, reliable energy. And because of the Democrats' attack on coal, natural gas, and nuclear energy, they've created this. I don't even know what you would call it. This fiasco of trying to provide cheap, affordable, reliable energy, which through a mechanism that is not cheap or affordable or reliable, and by some magic, they're going to cause our electric bills to go down. And then Governor Pritzker has the audacity to say that this is Trump's fault, and it's 100% it lays at the feet of the Democrats, Joe Biden, the Inflation Reduction Act, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, anytime you interject the velocity of money into a system, economics 101, you're going to cause massive inflation. And that's what they've done. And it's exacerbated. I mean, it's put everything on steroids when it comes to bad things happening to the public sector. And make no mistake, this is all on the back of Joe Biden, J.B. Pritzker, Kamala Harris, and the radical Democrats that are destroying not only our state, but are destroying our country also.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm cracking up because as you started that line, Chris, I went over to the ticker to type in something about them blaming Donald Trump. And it was already there from past videos because every problem that they have, they blame Donald Trump.
Right.
So I'm just cracking up that it was already there in my little column because that's the name of the game with these people is blame Donald Trump for our problems.
Right.
Blame Donald Trump for CJ. Blame Donald Trump. You know, the list goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
But
well, the Democrats don't want to work off of factor history because it isn't like the state of Illinois has been run by a bunch of right wingers. Come on, let's get real. I mean, we can go from even Republican governors to the Democrats. I mean, the idea that we are run by a conservative block of people is laughable. Even when we get Republicans installed, they're far from conservative.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, I think that's pretty obvious. So they might want to take some of our ideas, even if they take credit for them, at least privately take some of our ideas to give some of our residents some relief. But I think they're just going to double down. I don't know if people, guys, just get desensitized to the misery. Maybe they just are, maybe the constituencies are just so numb to high taxes. And I say primarily in the Chicagoland area that they're just so used to it that they don't know any different. And so they just accept it. But I just can't imagine if you're a Democrat or an independent or a Republican in the South Side of Chicago, your schools suck, your roads are falling apart. Every night sounds like the 4th of July with gunshots. People are getting killed on your street. And, oh, by the way, let's elect the exact same types of people that have created the policies that have generated that result.
Mm-hmm.
It makes no sense.
Spot on. Slam dunk. Couldn't agree more. So the bottom line is getting people to associate these negative results with public policy. And so, folks, if you're listening and you pay a utility bill, you better start voting Republican if you don't already. It's only going to get worse. All right. Hey, a couple of events coming up. We want to continue to educate you on vote by mail and ballot chasing. And so if you're in the White County, southeastern Illinois area, I'd love to see you August 23rd. And if you're in the Tazewell, Peoria area, would love to see you on September 27th in Washington. So a couple of great events coming up. We're also going to do a Freedom Caucus town hall in the Tazewell County area in September. And we're coming to the Rockford area, hopefully in September as well for a town hall. So just keep your eyes out for those events. Here's where you can find us. And here is our Substack. And let's go to closing thoughts. Chairman Miller, if you want to go first, and Chesney, if you want to round us out, and we'll call tonight.
Well, I just want to thank everybody for tuning in this evening, and hopefully that you enjoy listening to the home of truth, logic, and common sense. We're gonna always bring you the unvarnished truth, and because it's important for you to know what's going on in real time. The Democrats are in the process of destroying our state, and some of the squishy Republicans are willing accomplices. And I hope that as we move into this new cycle, that we can fire the frauds and we can actually elect officials that are going to have a burning desire to fix this state and clean up the mess, because we do have a mess. It's all been orchestrated by bad public policy, and the good news is it was done by politicians, and the politicians can fix it. But I've got a feeling that you're going to have to change a few of them out. We aren't going to be able to retrofit them. We need new ones. We need new blood in Springfield. I mean, the Dems have been in charge forever, so don't let them for a minute allow you to think that this is the Republicans' fault or Donald J. Trump's fault. And so stay tuned. We're going to continue to bring you the truth, and you can count on that every time you tune in.
That's right.
Yeah, no, appreciate everyone for spending just a few minutes. And Colin, we should throw this on the agenda next time we chat to talk about the CPAC scores and how our Freedom Caucus, we stay united. And, we often talk a lot of times, and you'll see a lot more of the establishment Republicans talk about party unity. I'm the newest member of the Freedom Caucus. I've been a member, 8 or 9 months, but we don't really ever talk about unity because we're always on the same page. We can crank out a press release in 3 minutes, at least get an agreement on the concept in 3 minutes. And so we don't really talk about unity because we already know where everybody's votes are going to fall. And so I point people to that because you can be very well liked in your local, at your local school districts or at your coffee shop or when you show up to your local farm bureau, but your voting record has to match what you say in your districts. And so, these CPAC scores that come out is an independent third-party review that said, well, even Republicans are a little squishy, right? Even, we only had 2 members in the Illinois Senate that were Republican that scored over 80% in 2024. Only 2 out of 19. The House actually had 21, which was much better. And so I just ask, for those that are listening, hold your local electeds accountable. They can be nice people, but they also have to be good at how they vote and make sure their values reflect not only their district, but what they say. And so we're going to keep shining a big, bright light on that, because your voting record does count, even if you're a nice person. And that doesn't mean that you're a bad parent or you're a bad friend. But if you go into your district and then you go down to Springfield and those 2 things don't match, there's going to be a problem. And we're going to get into a little bit about voting records and the importance of that, because that is ultimately the most important thing we do. We can give a good fancy speech and give you all the updates you want, but when we hit that button, that's the most important. That's our ability to represent you, and we have to make sure that we hold those on both sides of the aisle accountable. So appreciate you having us all on, or appreciate you guys taking a few minutes to see us and listen to us, what we have to say, and we'll see you next time.
Yep, that's right. Achievement list. So we do that consistently and happened again this year. So, hey, folks, please like, share, and subscribe to our content. And thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you real soon.
See you.